Hi, my name is Robin Wong. I'm a photographer based in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia. In this video, I want to talk about this lens, the LAOWA 6mm f2. This is the widest rectilinear lens for micro four thirds. Let's do this! Before we dive in, here are some important disclaimers. LAOWA did contact me and they sent me this lens. After my review, I have to return this lens to LAOWA. I don't get to keep this lens. I also made it clear to LAOWA that they have no control whatsoever on what I want to say, so my opinion here is entirely of my own and they are subjective. I'm reviewing this lens from a user experience perspective. I have received many requests from manual lens manufacturers before to review their lenses, and I have rejected all of them. This LAOWA 6mm f2 is the first time I said yes. The only reason I said yes to this lens is because this is the widest rectilinear lens for micro four thirds. The only wider lens for micro four thirds is a fisheye, but that will have too much distortion in an image. To get some meaningful shots that I normally do, I prefer a rectilinear lens. And LAOWA, this 6mm lens, they promise to have zero distortion. So I was really excited to see what this lens can do. For such a wide-angle lens, 6mm, and having bright aperture f2, I was surprised at this really small form factor of the lens. It is made of metal construction, it feels really solid, it doesn't feel cheap, and I really like the minimalist, sleek design of this lens. The lens also has electronic contacts, which means the lens communicates directly with the camera. You can control the aperture from the camera itself, and this means when you're shooting with the lens, you'll have access to all the auto exposure modes like shooting in program, aperture priority, or shutter speed priority, because it allows the camera to control the aperture, which also means there is no aperture control on the lens. To me, that's a bonus, because when we have aperture control on the lens and manual focusing ring, sometimes in some other manual focusing lens, I accidentally change the wrong setting. Sometimes the aperture ring is in front, sometimes it's behind. It just gets too confusing when I'm shooting really fast. So for this particular LAOWA lens, there is only one control on the lens. It is the manual focusing. The manual focusing ring is smooth. I have no issue using it. Overall, the using experience has always been very positive. The handling of the lens is really good because it's really small and it's so light. It weighs only 188 grams. It balances well with any micro four thirds camera. For all my tests, I was shooting on my own Olympus OMD EM1 Mark III. Optical quality is actually very good. In terms of sharpness, I get really sharp images even shooting a wide open f2. Of course, you get slightly more sharpness when you stop down to f2.8, f4, f5.6, but I will not hesitate to shoot at f2 if I want to get really sharp images. And of course, shooting at f2, you get the advantage of using lower ISO in low light environment. In terms of corner softness, of course, having such a wide lens, the corners are soft, especially shooting wide open at f2, but the sharpness at the corners that improves significantly when you start at f4 and f5.6. At f5.6 and beyond, basically the sharpness is quite consistent from edge to edge, from corner to corner. This lens renders plenty of good contrast. The images look really realistic, they look really pleasant, and overall I think that in terms of technical flow controls, this lens handles it really well. The LAOWA 6mm f2 allows you to go really close to your subject. You can go as close as 9 centimeters from the front of the lens to the subject. This allows you to do some really creative composition. While you can go so close, bear in mind that at f2 wide open, the images does look a little bit soft at such close shooting distance. I highly recommend that you stop down to f2.8 or f4 for better sharpness. LAOWA claims that the lens has zero distortion, that's the branding, 0D, but that's not true. When shooting straight lines, the lines didn't appear perfectly straight, they were a little bit curved. The distortion is minor, but it is still there. It can be easily straightened in post. I'm just saying that there is distortion. I wish LAOWA didn't claim that this lens has zero distortion. That's very misleading. When it comes to purple fringing or chromatic aberration, the lens does show some purple fringing in high contrasty areas, but this is not a deal breaker. They can be easily fixed. Flare is a serious problem. When you're shooting anywhere against bright source of light, you can easily see flare, ghosting, haze, and this can be quite destructive to the image. There's no way to fix this. Even with the lens hood attached on the lens, you still get some flare issues. But I can forgive that because this is a super wide angle lens, 6mm. I don't think that there is a possible way to create a lens so wide without any flare problems. When it comes to starburst, this lens can create interesting starburst because it has 5 aperture blades, so it has 10-point starburst, which can be really interesting. However, most of the starburst also comes with some kind of flare, so be careful of how you shoot the starburst in your photograph. Now, because it only has 5 aperture blades, the bokeh shape is quite interesting. Yes, because it's f2, if you go close enough to the subject, you can render some shallow depth of field. You get some bokeh in the background. The bokeh balls, when shooting a wide open f2, is actually very round and circular, so I was actually very impressed by how this lens with only 5 aperture blades can create such round bokeh balls. They look really pleasing. However, as soon as you stop down to f2.2, right, from f2 to f2.2, the bokeh balls immediately became pentagon-shaped bokehs. They are no longer circular balls. So depends on whether you like that pentagon shape or not. It can look really interesting in photographs, but just bear in mind, f2 you get bokeh balls, nice and round, but f2.2 you get pentagon shaped bokeh. And that's it. I think in terms of flaw controls, it is very impressive for LAOWA to manage them really well, because I think it is a huge challenge to design such a wide angle lens, 6mm. And for them to control the flaws so well, I think, hey LAOWA, you did a great job. If you need a super wide angle for your photography, as much width as possible, if you're shooting architecture, interior, then this LAOWA 6mm f2 is perhaps one of the best lenses that you can get. The only downside is this lens doesn't have autofocus. You have to use manual focus in all your shots, but it shouldn't be a problem because in modern cameras you have focus peaking, you have focus magnify to assist you to get pin sharp manual focus, provided that you're not dealing with moving subjects. And at the asking price of about $499 US, I think it is very reasonable. There's nothing to compare to. There's no other lens as wide as this 6mm, unless you go for fisheye, which is full of distortion, and that's a completely different lens altogether. LAOWA is running a video marathon. This is the 2nd year they're doing so. The theme this year is Lost and Found. You can submit anything taken with whatever lens that you have. It doesn't have to be a LAOWA lens. You stand a chance to win really interesting prizes. The deadline for submission is 24th of February this year. For more information, please check out the link I put in the pinned comment below. That's all I have to share about this LAOWA 6mm f2 lens. If you found my sharing beneficial, or if you have enjoyed looking at my photographs, please consider buying me a cup of coffee, or you can contribute directly to my PayPal. Links in the description below on how you can do that. Any small contribution goes a long way, will definitely help me to continue making more content and publish them right here. And remember to go out and take more photographs. Bye-bye.